For those of you that do not know me, my name is Thina Lindhorst, and I'm the Executive Director of Love Living at Home. Our mission is to help Tompkins County seniors age in place through social events and programming. We do offer anyone age 50 plus that lives in Tompkins County a free 3-month trial to try out Love Living at Home. If after that cost is a barrier from joining, we do have our David Sprague sponsored membership fund. So we do offer membership at no cost. So if you are interested, please contact me or Polly. And today, this series is brought to you by our Legacy at Home partner and our office neighbor, Timeless Hearing. Leading the discussion today is the owner of Timeless Hearing and our Love Living at Home board member, Cliff Carey. This topic is especially important to me just on a personal note. My now 3-year-old daughter has a rare genetic condition, so she has had many audiology visits already and hearing screenings. I do also have 4 family members on my husband's side that are deaf, including 2 very young nieces. And then since my dad has not joined this call, I can say that I have another family member in their mid-70s that is in denial about their hearing loss. So I really have seen firsthand how hearing loss can happen at any age and how much it can affect individuals' health as well as relationships. So I'm very excited for this discussion. And Cliff joined the Timeless Hearing team in March 2021, following 12 years in hearing care business development. So Cliff is the owner of Timeless Hearing. He has pursued roles in healthcare leadership since 2009 and has worked in business strategy and team development since 2003. Cliff loves hiking in the Adirondacks and spending time with family. We do want this to be an open dialogue, so if you have questions, you can go ahead and ask at any point. You can also raise your hand at the bottom in the toolbar, or you can put questions in the chat as well, and we will read them to Cliff. So we will also have some time at the end for Q&A, and then I will also have some special announcements at our closing. So thank you all so much for joining us, and I will now hand it over to Cliff Carey.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Thina. And before I get started, Thina, I think there was a way that participants could turn captions on if they needed to. Is that a relatively quick tutorial process that we can walk them through?
So that is a wonderful question. It depends if users have in their advanced settings on their Zoom account, if they have caption ability turned on. If so, if you hit the Show Captions button on the bottom right of your computer, you should be able to turn on captions. If they do not show up and you do have them enabled, you probably do have to go into your advanced settings, which is something that the office can help you with for future Zooms.
Yeah, and we don't want to delay the discussion too much today. I know that as we launch this onto YouTube after the fact, that the YouTube platform will add captions to the dialogue there. So if there are some items that we discuss that don't come through as clearly as you prefer them to, you can always go back and rewatch once it's deployed into YouTube. So thank you so much, Thina. I really appreciate the time and the platform to have a discussion that's near and dear to my heart. I've worked in the healthy aging space now for 25 years of my life. Yes, the last just under 20 years or so have been in the audiology and hearing space. But prior to that, I worked on the business side of things, but in the nutrition world, helping many of the clients through that organization to live the best version of themselves as they could, no matter what age they were at. And many of the clients that we served were folks who were looking to optimize their health and abilities as they were in the later chapters of their lives. So it's an area that for me is very important. I'm now closing in on 50 myself, and have noticed that I look back at my my former self and capabilities and notice that things have changed, and I anticipate that there will be further changes. And I'd like to stay as true to my youthful vigor as possible, no matter how old it is when I finally cash it in. So I want to talk about healthy aging today. And as I thought about generating our discussion dialogue, I kind of wanted to steer a little bit away from having it be audiology and hearing heavy. So if anyone did show up wanting to have that discussion, please, we can do that in the Q&A, but I'll try to keep it more general healthy aging because I think that is a great way for us to kick off this Aging Well seminar series that will include quarterly episodes as we go. And we're really excited for the next few speakers that we've already lined up. And I'm hoping to honor them by kicking off with episode 1 in a way that will set them up for success in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Stand by, please. Here we go. Share. Beginning. Okay. So in general, aging well, healthy aging, anti-aging, these are all kind of euphemisms where there's science and exploratory conversations around how do we help ourselves and the people that we love to feel 10 years younger for maybe 10 years longer. And that's the key to the talking points that I brought with us today. I do want to start with a couple of disclosures. This is an unpaid speaking event, but we are a program sponsor, specifically of the Aging Well speaker series and a sponsor to Love Living at Home. And I just want everyone to understand that. The views that I bring today, they're not paid for by Living at Home, Love Living at Home, but there is a dynamic relationship here that you should all be aware of. I am, as Thina mentioned, the owner of Timeless Hearing, a regional audiology and hearing care practice, but this will not be an overt commercial engagement to try to get you to invest in better hearing with our organization. So please understand that. And all the insights that I'm going to provide today, they're backed by peer-reviewed research from credible outlets. And I'm actually going to offer some thumbnails from the research articles that I'll be citing specifically. And I'm also happy to make all of that research available on demand for anyone who requests it. Some of the research articles, some of the larger meta-analyses are only available behind a paywall. And I have paid those fees for the paywall and would be happy to share my copy, not for mass distribution, but with folks who are requesting it specifically in this talk. I'm also the host of the Timeless podcast, which is a long-form exploratory conversation into aging, where I talk with doctors, healthcare providers, anyone who is in a field or a service sector that helps people to age the best that they can. So some of the insights that I'll share today were steered as I learned more through some of those discussions, and I just want you to be aware of that. And of course, I am a member of the board of directors for Love Living at Home, and I also sit on the marketing committee for Love Living at Home. So please understand that these views today, many of them may be attributed to my own opinions, but many of them are going to be backed by some great research. So hopefully it opens up some great dialogue and you've got some questions. Feel free to ask them as we go or save them for the end, whichever you prefer. I love a nice lively dialogue and engaged audience. So please don't hold back if you think it's what I'm after. Okay. So the good news, if you are someone who's advancing in age, is that is happening all over the world in some really extraordinary fashions. By 2050, it's estimated that the global population of people over the age of 60 is going to double. Right? 2050 is not that far off. and people over the age of 80 will triple. In fact, I heard a statistic recently that said that the average grade schooler has like an 80% chance to make it into their mid to late 80s, which is fantastic. Right now, currently, based on the latest Census Bureau information that we have, that we can credibly point to, the average American man lives to 78 years old, and the average American woman lives to about 83 years old. So we're going to continue to see advancements in life expectancy. And of course, much of this, the growth in global life expectancy was attributed initially to more education into the things you can do to make yourself live a little bit longer, better healthcare available for people as they age. But this trend is not exclusively in the developed world or high-income countries. We're actually seeing these trends in lower-income countries as well. A lot of it has to do with the shift that has taken place over the last 30 years, in which the majority of the world's population does not live in poverty or in famine. So one huge element to allow a human being to live longer and to live a healthier life is to make sure they're getting the right amount of caloric intake. So that's been a great development in recent decades that has allowed humans to live longer than they ever have been before. Healthy aging, again, a little bit of a euphemism, but it is a concept that combines scientific perspective and lived experience. And it usually comes down to three specific measurable domains. One is medical health, and this would be the presence or absence of disease, and that is documented by a clinician, normally a licensed clinician, at least experienced clinician, depending on the setting, who can speak to the presence or the absence of disease. Functional health is something that refers to the ability to perform activities. And this is where clinical doctorates come in quite a bit. So think about physical therapists, audiologists are clinical doctorates. So these aren't necessarily MDs or physicians, but another subset of a clinical provider that can help out with our understanding of functional health. So you can imagine someone could maybe have some decent biomarkers, blood panels, have the absence of, any type of something you could describe on blood work or x-rays. But if their functional abilities are limited, well, you might not say that they're necessarily as healthy as they would like to be. So functional health and medical health tend to couple together very well in describing someone's overall health and well-being. And then self-rated health is really important. And these are usually the way that an individual would describe their own experience, their own performance. There are countless self-rating scales available where people can describe their own health. We use quite a few in our industry where people can report maybe how the burden of their tinnitus, that might be scored on a self-rating scale. Quality of life is usually attributed to the way that an individual may describe or rate their quality of life versus their expectations. Self-rating health scales tend to be highly subjective. The data collected tends to be relatively noisy. So we tend to want to have a larger data set in order to get real good trending information. You can imagine that you could have two individuals sitting side by side with relatively similar blood work, relatively similar, MRI, CAT scan, relatively similar functional abilities, but because one person expected that they should be able to perform better, or the other person was just very contented with where they were in life, their self-rating could be vastly different, right? So it's something where we want to take those things into account when we're reviewing those outputs. When it comes to healthy aging, it's really more about how we feel rather than compared to something that can be measured. And that doesn't mean we get rid of the measurable stats, but healthy aging, most people, if you were to ask them, what does healthy aging mean to you? They would have a collection of some of these data points here. They want freedom of movement and mobility. less aches and pains on a daily basis, less worry in their life, better cognitive function, maybe a younger appearance. Their overall experience of life being something of contentment and satisfaction. And then of course we don't want to completely rule out biomarkers. But biomarkers alone, sometimes can belie some underlying quality of life metrics. But these are usually the domains where people are reaching for when we're talking about quality of life. You'll notice that I didn't even put like age at death, right? That's not even usually something where folks are that concerned with it. And it could be that we've got a psychological block around our own mortality, so we don't necessarily want to have an end point in mind. So it's kind of open-ended. And then it really just becomes, what is the quality of my life for whatever amount of life I have remaining? And there's been a robust dialogue over the last few years about our lifespan versus our health span. All right. And so lifespan usually is just this very clear delineation of what is our life, what is our age at death. So how long did we live? Where health span has much more to do with these multifactorial combinations of functionality, lived experience. What was my health like? What was my experience like for the majority of my life? And there are a couple, very interesting authors out there who've done some great work compiling information on functional fitness later in life and how that leads to a better quality of life. The first thing I want to talk about is exercise. Exercise is sort of the granddaddy of them all when it comes to the things we should talk about and focus on when it comes to healthy aging. There is an amazing relationship with exercise and just about every characteristic of health as we age. As you increase exercise, you tend to increase cardiovascular capacity and output, right? And of course, heart disease is the #1 killer of Americans. And so if you can reduce your incidence of cardiovascular disease or risk for cardiovascular disease or the impact of cardiovascular dysfunction, you're going to see health indicators and lifespan increase, of course. But you also see better lung function, right? So this would be your respiratory and pulmonary function. Muscular function increases, muscle mass increases. You tend to see things like adipose fat tissue decrease. You see inflammation decrease with more exercise. You see sleep improve, mood improve, stress reduction, nervous system function improvements, right? All of these things are correlated in a positive sense. So either the number's going to move up or down, but in a positive, more beneficial way when you introduce exercise. And of course, metabolism and metabolic function increases or improves with exercise. And of course, metabolic disease is something that is should be of concern for most people when they get into the latter third of their lives. So we'll go a little bit more in depth into exercise. And when people are looking for like a functional definition of exercise or physical fitness, it could be defined thus: the ability to carry out daily tasks with vigor and alertness without undue fatigue, with ample energy to enjoy leisure pursuits and to meet unforeseen emergencies. And working in the healthy aging space, as I have, I've got plenty of clients in my current business and my previous businesses where their ability to meet unforeseen emergencies might be compromised based on their physical fitness, right? Their ability to enjoy their leisure activities that they might have enjoyed most of their lives has become compromised because of undue fatigue or that loss of vigor and alertness. So I tend to see this as a great functional description or definition of physical fitness. And among the physiological changes associated with aging, the ones that affect cardiorespiratory and vascular system and skeletal muscle the most they all affect physical fitness, right? So as we age, we tend to see our cardiovascular output diminish. A healthy 25-year-old can pump 2.5 quarts of blood per minute. And a 65-year-old can't get above 1.5 quarts, right? And we know that cardiovascular function is very important for so many different things. But chief among them would be muscular skeletal movement. Can we move our body around? Can we feed the muscles the nutrient-dense blood that it needs and the oxygen-dense oxygenated blood that it needs to not just move the muscles, but to recover from that movement so that we can get to where we want to get to and do the things we want to do. And then, of course, our cognitive function is driven so much by our ability to pump nutrient-dense and oxygen-rich blood. And you can see that an 80-year-old can pump only about 1 quart per minute, even if it's disease-free, that heart. And so over the span of time has this natural degradation of our ability to pump blood through our bodies. So we need to train our heart to maintain as much capacity as we can over time. So you're looking at the diminished aerobic capacity produces fatigue and breathlessness in even the most modest activities. It could be walking up a flight of 4 or 5 stairs where someone could get winded, right? It could be simply carrying your groceries in from your car or putting your groceries away. Those things can cause undue fatigue on someone if they're not exercising as much as they should. The name of the game here is to just do it, is to exercise. There was this fantastic study done back in the 60s called the Dallas bed rest test. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but they actually paid some interns, college students, to sit in bed to basically reproduce what a sedentary lifestyle might look like over the summer. And they measured a lot of their physical and physiological measurements throughout that summer. And in just 3 weeks, these 20-year-olds developed many physiological characteristics of men twice their age. It was really, really astounding to these researchers to see just how much of an impact not moving your body, simply not moving your body enough, could have on a 20-year-old. Those types of impacts could be extrapolated for folks as they age. Your body will recover less easily. It will be less robust in its ability to maintain those characteristics over time. So sedentary lifestyle later in life would have even more of a deleterious effect. What was really interesting is they actually went back to those interns when they were in their 50s, and they measured their physiology and their physical fitness. And their physical fitness had diminished in a way that they felt was very normal for their age. But what they did is they had these same gentlemen go on a 6-month training regimen, and they found that slow but steady endurance training was extremely beneficial. At the end of 6 months, the men averaged only a modest 10-pound loss because they gained weight over time. But their resting heart rates, blood pressures, and the maximum pumping abilities were back to their baseline levels from even in their mid-20s. But that was 6 months of cycling. First it started with walking, then went to jogging, then went to cycling. So the important part to think about is the intensity of your workload matters. Now, I'm not a doctor, as I mentioned. Please do not go out and start doing excessive high-intensity physical training right away. I would consult with any physicians or medical representatives who are impacting your care plan right now. But understanding that if you can start to put your body into a state of being just a little bit out of breath for at least 10 to 15 minutes each day, and maybe working your way towards about 35 to 40 minutes each day, and then increasing the activity and capacity as your own capacity increases, what you find is if you do 10 minutes of walking each day, you're a little bit out of breath. Well, within a week or two, you're going to do that same amount of walking and you won't be as out of breath as your body responds and adapts to the adverse environment that you are generating, that your capacity will increase and you want to increase your activity. So again, it's the intensity is subjective based on where your baseline is. And then you're thinking about modest increases over time, and you can start to see improvements in your cardiorespiratory output. Diversity of movements is really important. There is great clinical research that it has correlated the size of leg muscles and grip strength to lowering risk of mortality, which increases your life expectancy, but also cognitive performance. Your leg muscles can be described as pumps that are pumping large amounts of blood through your body. Now, of course, your heart is the pump at the middle, but once your blood makes it through your arteries, which carry blood away from your heart, and then makes it into your capillaries that are embedded in the tissues of your body, you need the constriction of your muscular tissue to help move that blood through the capillaries and then into the veins, right, where the superhighway that the spent blood carries back to your vital organs to be filtered, cleansed, and then back into the heart to be reoxygenated by the lungs, right? So leg exercises, whether it's body weight squats or you could be doing lunges, you could be doing seated bicycling, and depending on where your baseline physical fitness is. But working the leg can be very, very beneficial early on. Working on things with grip strength can be very, very helpful, not because of these correlative biomarkers, that it is used as a correlative biomarker, but because your grip strength will diminish over time. And even lifting your groceries onto the countertop or lifting your luggage for the next trip that you might take is something that you're going to want to maintain the ability to do as you age. Core exercises are very, very important. You want to maintain your core strength because that will protect your back. And of course, you want your back to be as healthy as it can be for as long as it can be. And then, of course, your cardiovascular capacity. Any questions related to the exercising and healthy aging portion before I move on? Everyone's motivated to go and start exercising this afternoon, I'm sure. Let's get into nutrition. And of course, nutrition feeds very well into the exercise piece. But nutrition is a highly, I wouldn't say it's controversial. I would say that it is a highly contested space. And this is a space that I specifically worked in for about 5 years. And if you were to talk to 100 people, you might get 100 different variations on what they think healthy eating looks like and has meant for them, right? And so it's really important to know that our food systems and the standard American diet really makes it very easy for us all to get ultra processed foods with a lot of refined carbohydrates in them very quickly. Right? And so this was important for us 100 years ago when calorie dense foods were hard to come by, and we had a growing population that needed a food system that supported the growth of the booming population and our emerging workforces. Today, that ultra processed food and those refined carbohydrates have a lot of downstream effects. It's really interesting that historically, aging had been associated with frailty and people being underweight. Maybe we thought of the classic idea of, an elderly individual might have been someone who was bone thin. That is not the case. That is not the reality of America in 2026. Older adults are now more likely to be obese than underweight. The most recent published data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Study indicates that 39% of Americans over 60 are obese and less than 2% of them are underweight, right? So it's a lot less frequently that there are seniors out there that need to have supplemental meal replacement shakes just to make sure they're getting the right caloric intake. That doesn't mean it's a zero, factor. And of course, we are all aware that, due to financial restrictions, there are people, unfortunately, who are, making that tough choice between, eating enough and getting their prescriptions filled. But with this, large segment of people over the age of 60 being obese, it's not a caloric issue for many of them. As we age, our energy needs tend to decrease. We tend to participate in fewer and fewer laborious tasks, whether those are related to our occupation or related to our leisure choices. And our requirements for nutrients, it stays unchanged or it actually increases. And things like the FDA's daily recommended allotments of vitamins and minerals exists because the average American, if they were to eat only the food that might be readily available to them, are actually receiving too few of the essential nutrients in their diets. And of course, that has a deleterious effect on the way that our body ages, right? If you're not getting enough of the antioxidant vitamins and minerals, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, selenium, iron, these things are going to unfortunately not allow you to manage the waste at the cellular level in your body. And whenever you've got more toxins at that level, you have unfortunately the ability for your cells to age quicker and not repair themselves well enough. So it's important to focus on consuming more nutrient dense versus more calorie dense foods as we age, and really well in advance of where we might think that we are of an aged population. We've all heard this term, you are what you eat. More realistically, you will be what you eat today, right? It's not something where you have an immediate impact on, I guess if you're eating the wrong thing, let's say that you got celiacs, if you eat the wrong thing, you're going to feel pretty ill today. But our bodies are pretty robust in their ability to metabolize not just the calories and the nutrients and the food products that we take in, but other things like alcohol and toxins. Those things get into our food, either microplastics or other types of things get into our food, and our body has a way of metabolizing the things it can metabolize, recognizing the things that it can't digest and metabolize, and expelling those. But if we overwhelm our body's waste management systems by constantly giving it the wrong foods or the wrong ratios of foods, then that can have this impact over time. And in fact, we usually tend to increase our body fat percentage by 1% every year after age 30, which is quite a bit, right? And so we need to be very, very careful about our adipose fat, which is body fat. In men, this tends to be belly fat. In women, it tends to be in other areas on their bodies, but this is the stuff that would be subcutaneous. This tends to increase our overall body weight, which puts undue stress on our skeletal structure, our tendons, our ligaments, can throw our postures out of balance. And we should be working to reduce body fat when possible. Visceral fat, which is actually another form of adipose fat, but visceral fat specifically builds up around our internal organs. And that can lead to organ dysfunction and certainly can help to increase things like inflammation. So we need to be careful about that. And then our sugar intake is something we need to be very, very, very much aware of. The American diet is very high in refined carbohydrates, and that those sugars have multitudes of negative effects once they get inside of our body. One is that at a microscopic level, sugars are crystals, and they're very sharp. And as those sugar molecules are carried around through our body, through our blood system, they actually can abrade or cause inflammation through these tiny cuts that they cause inside of our blood vessels. And those abrasions actually lead to the inside of our blood vessels becoming more sticky, or at least places where things can adhere. And you can have cholesterol buildups, which of course lead to higher blood pressure when the cholesterol or other things build up inside of the blood vessel and then become dislodged as a larger unit. They can cause blood clots, and of course that's the number one way to get a stroke or a heart attack, right? So we want to make sure that we're reducing our sugar intake to something that is manageable by our insulin response, our pancreatic response, and that we're reducing the amount of adipose fat and visceral fat. So we could do this through exercise and through better nutritional choices. Behavior is tough to change as we age, right? But it's never too late to start choosing better nutritional choices and physical fitness choices. Now, I've got supplementation on here. I think it is important that we're supplementing, but we're supplementing correctly. I don't want to talk about things like, peptides or, other things that are out there in the healthy aging space. I'm talking about some of the key deficiencies that most aging Americans have. That would be vitamin D. A fish oil product would be a fantastic supplement for most Americans to reduce inflammation, to increase ocular health, joint function, things like that. There is actually a groundbreaking study that came out just a couple of years ago where with a simple one a day, I think it was the Centrum Silver vitamin that was used in this study, but a simple addition of a one a day multivitamin was correlated to an increase in life expectancy. And so that's, you need to start somewhere with supplementation or with nutritional changes. It might be taking on a multivitamin, but you want to take a look at quantity. Most Americans should reduce the quantity calories that they intake every day. And you want to increase the quality of the food. So reach mostly for whole foods, healthy fats whenever possible. Most Americans should be reducing their calories that they're getting from carbohydrates. And most Americans, yes, could benefit from increasing their protein intake. You should be very wary of diets that are, say, the carnivore diet, especially if you have a tendency to accumulate toxins in your extremities like gout. Gout can be certainly inflamed by a carnivore diet, but getting your body more often than it currently is into a state of ketosis where it's burning your body fat for energy rather than burning glucose for energy. And so there's some specific ways to do that. And I would work with a nutritionist or the care of a doctor to make those right types of choices. As with exercising, changes in nutrition, slow and steady changes are much more sustainable and likely to stick than some aggressive change in behavior. The last piece I have here is hydration. You can see on the bottom, I've got two studies or two articles, one both from the National Institute of Health, one from the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and from the other just straight from the NIH, talking about the link between hydration and aging. Most Americans are chronically dehydrated, so you should also look to increase your hydration levels, and you'll feel better all around, and it may impact your aging. All right, I'm going to move through these next ones a little bit faster so we have time for Q&A. A lot of information here, gang, and I'm really looking forward to any questions you might have. But it's important to get enough sleep. Disrupted sleep can unfortunately speed up your biological aging process because a lot of really good things happen while we sleep. So disrupted sleep can lead to mitochondrial dysfunction. Of course, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell that leads to oxidative stress, damage to your DNA. I mean, I don't know if anyone out there, wants damaged DNA, but the DNA is basically the blueprint code for how you run, how you're as an organism. And so you want really good DNA. High blood pressure increases, heart disease risk, diabetes, problems with memory, negative feelings, stress in relationships, falls and accidents, and then even unintentional nodding off during daytime activities, can be dangerous and even just an impact on quality of life. Keep in mind that in deep sleep, you're clearing metabolic waste out of your brain, like amyloid plaques. And of course, there's a lot of clinical research. Some of it is being, reanalyzed, but there's a lot of research that links beta amyloid plaques with cognitive dysfunction, dementia, and of course, Alzheimer's disease. So get enough sleep. There's a clear U-shaped pattern when it comes to what is the right amount of sleep. So people who sleep fewer than 6 or greater than 8 tended to show faster biological aging, right? So find that sweet spot for yourself. And again, they're saying somewhere on average of about 7 hours of sleep. Make sure if you need to enter yourself into a sleep study, talk with a sleep expert. There may be things going on you're not aware of. Sleep apnea is very common among aging Americans, but many cases of sleep apnea are undiagnosed because there might not be audible snoring. You may be sleeping alone and someone can't tell you that you are snoring or having interrupted sleep. And some of the outward symptoms are very slight, but the internal impact of that sleep apnea can be difficult. Okay. Respiratory disorders also become common as people age. So let's talk about stress. Stress is something many people feel as they age. Chronic stress keeps your body in a state of survival, where you're in a high cortisol state. You might also be producing a higher than normal amount of adrenaline, right? Hyperadrenalized state. So poor recovery and accelerated aging, and it chips away at your cellular health and functionality. And so even though we are reproducing many of the cells in our body systematically every single day and replacing them, again, if the DNA is damaged, we talked about that on the sleep slide, but if the moment that these new cells are produced, they're under stress and strain, they're just not going to perform well, even if they're likely to be replaced at some point anyway, right? So we just need to be very careful. Chronic stress speeds up biological aging by damaging the cells and shortening telomeres. I don't know if anyone's familiar with telomeres, but they're these fantastic little encoded strips of cellular information that hang off the end of our DNA. And those telomeres, as they elongate, we see a positive correlation in lifespan too. So you don't want to do anything that shortens your telomeres because it's probably going to correlate effectively with less life expectancy. So be careful of that. Low-grade inflammation is very, very difficult for your body. Stress kills more people than any disease ever did. Although it may be a disease that's listed on your death certificate, most functional doctors can point to it being a stress-induced body dysfunction, right? So just be very careful about that. Plus, when we're stressed, we tend to eat poorly, sleep poorly, we're less likely to exercise, right? All of these things sort of stack on top of each other. And maybe stack is the wrong word. All of our body functions, they're interwoven with one another. So the metaphor of stacking is inappropriate. They're interwoven and interdependent. So we need to be very much aware of that. Exposure to stressful life experiences when occurring repeatedly may accelerate the rate at which the body ages. So how do you get your stress level down? Prioritize sleep. Comes back around, right? Limit your sugars. It's really interesting how much a high sugar diet can cause stress and then lead to behaviors and activities that also lead to further stress. It really is an unfortunate feedback loop. Eat more fatty fish or supplement with a fish oil or do both, right? That can be a great way to do it. Move your body. We talked about exercise. That can help you to reduce your amount of overall stress. And ditch the alcohol. I think it's romanticized sometimes in movies. It's certainly something where culturally we've had it, in our society for a long time, that many people relax by drinking alcohol. But what we come to find is that your body recognizes that alcohol almost immediately as a toxin, and your liver works extra hard to metabolize that, making it unable to do other chores. By the way, one thing that your liver does is stores and then burns glucose, right? So the more alcohol you drink, the less likely your body is to properly manage your glucose levels. And diabetes is very common among Americans. It's related with many other healthcare concerns, including dementia. So we need to be very careful about that. So reduce your stress. Let's go right into cognition. It's hard to understate the importance of cognition in maintaining functional independence. Normal age-related changes in cognition, and this is a decline in performance on task where we have to quickly process or transform information to make a decision. This could be, measured by your processing speed, your working memory, your executive function. These things all occur as we age naturally, even while the cumulative knowledge and experiential skills that we've attained are maintained into advanced age. So, even if we've earned advanced degrees or expertise in certain domains, we still have all of that information in our heads, but our ability to process the information, to recall the information, to utilize the information can naturally wane over time. And then structural and functional changes in the brain correlate with age-related changing. And then, of course, as we put additional strains by our nutritional choices, our exercise choices, our inability to manage our stress well, poor sleep, we see dysfunction in the neuronal networks, and that actually accelerates what are naturally occurring changes to cognitive function. Here are some great studies that can help to better understand and articulate some of those points. You can see that age-related diseases accelerate that rate of dysfunction, the neuronal loss, the cognitive decline, and then impairment severe enough to impair everyday functional abilities, right? And that's where there's this conversion ratio from a subclinical cognitive impairment, which is just, searching for names that you used to be able to remember, forgetting why you entered into a room. I mean, these things are usually associated with normal age-related cognitive slippage. But there's a conversion ratio where that accelerates into a mild cognitive impairment, which is a clinical diagnosis. And then beyond that is a major cognitive impairment, and that is the clinical term for dementia, right? And so there's a one-way path. Some people move along that conversion pathway much more quickly than others. And some people can slow the rate of that conversion to where maybe they never accelerate from subclinical impairment into minor cognitive impairment. And if they reach minor cognitive impairment, they could possibly slow that acceleration where it never converts into a major cognitive impairment. But anyone who is active in the space, and I do believe we're going to have some speakers on that in the future, they're going to enlighten us with some alarming statistics about the incidence of cognitive impairment and dementia among the aging population in America. So it's something to be very aware of. All right. Last but not least, the experiential and social part of aging, right? Your sense of self, your outward projection of your personality, your self-determination, and your playfulness. And maybe this is like your curiosity. Many people, as they age, they start to become more cynical and less curious. But we find that the people who remain playful and curious tend to live longer. Any Dick Van Dyke fans out there? Dick Van Dyke, he's one of the most famous Americans over the age of 100. And when you ask him what his secret is he ditched stress a long time ago. He talks about some personal failures that he had when he was a younger man that taught him some life lessons, and that he has danced and sung his way through the last 75 years of his life. And he attributes not taking himself or life too seriously to allowing him to age as gracefully as he had. He still looks amazing for the age that he is. You can see that loneliness, isolation, biological aging, it's all related. But this fantastic study out of the Yale School of Public Health showed that there's a specific cohort of people who age much better simply based, right, on their baseline beliefs about aging, right? And so there's some people who, for them, aging is a dirty word, right? They don't want to accept aging. They don't want to age gracefully. They think it's a show of weakness or frailty. And there are other people who believe that it's wonderful seasoning that happens with us. We become wizened, right? Like a fine wine, we become better with age. It's that amount of self-determination and acceptance and really welcoming of the aging process that has been shown to allow people to really outperform the standard biological deteriorations related to aging that their other people in their cohorts experience. So a lot of it is up to us. I mean, there's also great research into things like self-determination as far as the recovery from illness or post-operative care. If you believe that you can be healed, you have a much higher potential to be healed than someone who doesn't believe that they'll be healed. It's almost like an anti-placebo effect. If you give a pharmacological intervention to someone who doesn't think that it will work, then it has a much less potent effect. It can have a much less potent effect. Whereas with a placebo, that's someone specifically believing that that placebo will give them the desired effect. And in most clinical studies, somewhere between 4 and 6% of people who receive the placebo get the desired effect. Isn't that amazing? So belief in yourself, belief in your ability, your robustness, your resilience, keeping a childlike curiosity, even if you don't feel like you're that childlike in your physical capabilities, can be really wonderful ways to help the aging process and your experience as you age. Okay, I've left us about 5 minutes. Are there questions, comments, challenges? I'm open to anyone calling me out or asking for additional research or statistical information. What can I do to enlighten you further in the minutes that we have remaining?
You can either speak questions or I'm keeping an eye on the chat. So if anyone wants to put questions in the chat, I can relay them to Cliff. And if we don't have any questions, that means that Cliff's presentation was entirely thorough. So
well, let me ask, was there anything that anyone heard for the first time today, or did this tend to reinforce things that most of you are already aware of?
There were some new interesting statistics, and I trust literature, trust science, so I was really grateful that you were bringing all that in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's so interesting in the learned communities too. It's not always about just knowing a thing, but it's applying the thing too, right? Yeah. Sometimes that's the biggest delta between getting the results that we want and where we currently our current status is. But I'm glad that I brought some new concepts and new statistics to you.
Right.
Anyone else learn anything today?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I do have some announcements if there are no questions for Cliff. So first of all, I would like to thank Cliff so much for today's presentation. I think this was a wonderful kickoff to the Aging Well series, and we are so grateful to you, Cliff, to Timeless Hearing, and then to everyone who attended today. I would also like to invite you all to submit your ideas for what you would like to see covered in this series. Aging well is a pretty broad topic, so if there are things that would be helpful in your life, please reach out to me or the office this and we can incorporate them into future series episodes. So speaking of which, I would like to announce the next Aging Well episode. So I'm actually going to steal the share screen and announce it with you all here today. So the next series will be on November 18th at the same time at noon. We will continue with a hybrid virtual option, and the presenter will be Stephanie D'Amico from the Alzheimer's Association. It's presenting on building brain healthy habits. So we hope that you will join us again, and Cliff will be there to co-moderate along with Stephanie. I would also like to pick one lucky attendee that will win a gift card to Ithaca Bakery, or if you are not local, a bakery near you. So I will spin the wheel here. All right. Hooray, Abby. So Abby is our lucky winner, and Abby, I will get you that gift card. All right. It looks like we are at time, but I will stay on for a couple extra minutes and I will stop the recording in case anyone has any questions.